Namaskar. I am Dr. Aarti Chaudhary, Assistant Professor in the Department of Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology at Vasant Kanya Mahavidyalaya, Banaras Hindu University. I welcome you once again in this 12-week course titled History of Science and Technology in Ancient India from Harappan Civilization to 7th century CE. Today we are going to discuss Module 11 and Lecture 4. The title of Module 11 is A Brief Survey of Agricultural Practices and Knowledge of Biodiversity in Ancient India, and the title of Lecture 4 is Agriculture in the Buddhist and Jain period. The first learning objective of this lecture is to know the agricultural practices described in the Jatak literature, to study the agricultural practices explained in the Agam literature is the second learning objective of this lecture, and the third learning objective of this lecture is to understand the animal husbandry of the contemporary period. So, in this lecture we will discuss these sub point, which is agrarian practices and social structure at that time of period, agriculture in Jatak tales and agriculture in Jain Agam literature. Agriculture during the Buddhist and Jain period was fundamental to both the economy and the spiritual framework of these traditions. In Buddhism, agriculture practices were shaped by ethical principles such as mindfulness, non-harm and sustainable resource use. Farming was viewed as a means of livelihood that could align with Buddhist value, emphasizing compassion and respect for the environment. In Jainism, agriculture was closely tied to the principle of non-violence, ahimsa, with a strong focus on minimizing harm to all living beings. Sustainable farming practices such as crop rotation and organic method were encouraged to protect both the land and its ecosystem. Both traditions recognized agriculture not only an essential for subsistence, but as an opportunity to uphold ethical and spiritual value through responsible and compassionate practices. Agrarian practices and social structure. The emergence of Mahatma Buddha took place during the rise of the Magad kingdom, whereas Vardhaman Mahavir, the 24th Tirthankar of Jainism, was a contemporary of Buddha, marking a significant philosophical and spiritual evolution in ancient India. The Jatak tale from Buddhist literature and the Agam from Jain literature are considered foundational text. While the Jatak are rich with moral narratives and social economic insights, the Jain Agam are known for their detailed prescriptions on right conduct, society and lifestyle. The text also mentioned that the destruction of forest led to floods and the ruin of farmland. In Kapilvastu, a dam was constructed on the Rohini river to irrigate the field with its water. A Jatak narrative illustrates that the intense labor demands for farming, farmers were so engaged in plowing, sowing, irrigating, fencing, weeding, hoeing, harvesting and threshing that they lacked the time to build shelters for the destitute, showcasing the exhaustive nature of agricultural work. Large landowners employed agricultural laborers to work their field. Slaves and servant women are described as a performing their duties without expressing discontent. During the Buddhist period, livestock play an important role, though there were no designated grazing lands. After the harvest, animal grazed in the field, but once crops were sown, they were entrusted to the village protector. He marked them for identification, cared for their wound, repelled insect with smoke at night, protected them from theft, ensured access to better pastures and water, and oversaw dairy production and distribution. So, the proper management of agriculture, the proper management of this horticulture and arboriculture is also dependent on the proper management of the animal husbandry, because they are completely inseparable. The proper production of agriculture or flower or vegetable, anything related to the normal vegetation, is depending on the natural fertilizer which is given by the animals. So, the proper management of animal, their role to the flourished agricultural production is also discussed in Buddhist and Jain literature. Fields were cultivated collectively, enclosed by a common boundary, eliminating the needs for individual fencing. Land was allocated according to household ownership, with each family receiving produce from its designated plot. Some Brahmins owned extensive land holdings. For example, a Brahmin named Kashi Bharadwaj processed land requiring 500 plough worked by hired laborers. Agricultural ritual and sacrifices were performed in the name of Ashini, Sita, Parjanya, Indra and Bhag during plowing, sowing and harvesting. Agriculture in the Jain Agam literature. In a Jain literature, the term Agam refers to Siddhant, doctrine or established principle, and is specifically used to denote the canonical text of Jainism. The Agam are divided into categories such as Ang, Upang, Chand and Sutras. Notable Jain texts include Parishisht Parvan, Bhadrabahu Charit, Avasyak Sutra, Bhagavati Sutra and Kalika Purana. The Kalpa Sutra, composed by Bhadrabahu around 400 BCE, is particularly very significant. In Jain literature, Puran are also found, such as the Padma Puran by Ravi Sen 677 CE, Harivansh Puran by Jinsen 783 CE and Mahapuran 1000 CE. These texts span 1000 years from the 6th to the 16th century CE. This literature is primarily written in Magadhi, Prakrit and Apabharansh language. Dr. Jagdish Chandra Jain has conducted extensive research on Jain Agam literature. Dr. Jagdish Chandra Jain identified several key texts for agricultural knowledge, including the Brihat Kalpa Bhashya, औपपातिक सूत्र, उपासक दशा, निशीथ चूर्ण पीठिका, आवश्यक चूर्ण and acharang, etc. The Mahapuran mentions 6 primary means of livelihood: asi, warfare; masi, scribe; krishi, agriculture; shilpa, craftsmanship; vidya, learning and Vanijya, commerce. Jain Puranas indicate that agriculture and animal husbandry were the primary source of livelihood during that period. Jain texts provide detailed references to agricultural elements such as farmlands, irrigation, crop cultivation, storage system and types of grain and crops. In the Jain Puranas, a farmer is referred to as a krishak and a plowman as a kinasa. Agricultural activities were carried out by leveling hilly and uneven lands, clearing forest and digging the soil. According to Mahapuran, farmers were portrayed as sincere, virtuous and free from fault. Now, the explanation about the fields. The fields were divided into two types, Setu and Ketu. Fields irrigated by device like that Rahat, Persian wheel were called Setu, while those where crop were grown using rainwater were known as Ketu. According to the Mahapuran, rainfall should be timely and sufficient. There were various means of irrigation, well, reservoir, ponds, canal and rivers were termed as Adeva Matrik. For instance, artificial sources, while rainwater considered as a natural sources was termed as Devamatrik. In the Sindhu region, rivers were the primary sources of irrigation, enabling the cultivation of crops. During the Buddhist Jain period, the Dravidian region relied on ponds and tanks for irrigation, while in the northern Uttarapat region, well were the main method of water sourcing for agriculture. In contrast, the Lata region depended on rainwater for irrigation, particularly during the rainy season, highlighting the significance of natural water resources sources in agricultural practices. In Mathura, agriculture was not practiced, instead the region was primarily engaged in trade and commercial activities. In certain places, Kanandweep, a distinctive agricultural method was observed wherein rice was cultivated on boats. Additionally, in various locations, farmer constructed channel known as Sarani to irrigate their fields in a systematic rotational manner, ensuring each plot received adequate water. At times, farmer would secretly divert water from nearby source to irrigate their fields. So, the information regarding the different irrigation practices, irrigation through the river water, irrigation through the dam, irrigation through the canal or well, according to the area. The northern area was basically dependent on the well, and if you visit in the northern area, basically in the Haryana region in Hisar district, you can see there was abundance of wells situated on the agricultural field. So, these are the sources which gives information regarding the continuity of these kind of practices in India still in these agricultural lands. So, the proper management of irrigation system on the basis of the field, on the basis of the demand of the agricultural land is the very scientific thinking, very scientific planning which is done by the ancient people. Now, types of land. The fertile black soil was referred to as Udgata Bhumi. These land retain water for extended periods, especially during times of heavy rainfall, making them suitable for agriculture. In contrast, the rocky and the less arable land was known as Anugrata Bhumi. In certain regions, forested area were cleared and burned to convert them into cultivable land, demonstrating an early form of shifting agriculture. The act of plowing was referred to as Sphota Karma, also known as Fodi Kamma, indicating the process of breaking the earth of for sowing. In honor of the plough deity, a ritual called Sita Yagya was performed, symbolizing reverence for agricultural and its divine association. Plowing was referred to as Sphotakarma. Fodikamma, a ritual called Sita Yagna, was performed in the honor of plough deity. The skilled farmer of Champanagari titled the land with hundred of plough and cultivated crops like sugarcane, barley and rice. Farmers who were highly skilled in agriculture were known as Krishi Parasar. Beside the plough, the spade kudal was also used in farming. Now, gardening the field. The daughters of farmer would shout to scare away calves and deer. They used stick to drive away wild bulls. They chase away wild boars. They would use the instrument made of horn. According to the Mahapuran, a straw man was placed in the field to protect the crop and animal would flee upon seeing them. So, these are the basically examples. Now, rice cultivation. Several varieties of rice were commonly grown including Kalamashali, Raktashali, Mahashali and Gandhashali. Seedlings were planted in especially prepared seed beds and fences were built around the field for protection. The rice crop was harvested using sickle, threshed by hand and stored in earthen pots. These pots were plastered with clay and sealed, then stored in granaries, kothara or kothagara. In the hilly region, a special type of granary known as sambadh was constructed. To protect the grain outside the house, often in forested area, people would make round structures using leaves and straw and the ground was coated with cow dung. Then the grain was piled into a long vertical heap called rasi. Ash was sprinkled over it and the surface was coated again with cow dung. Finally, it was covered using bamboo and straw. During the rainy season, grain were stored in mud or bamboo granaries on raised bamboo platform or a granary built above the house. The entrance of these storage units were sealed with cow dung and layered with mud to protect the grain. Types of grain. Jain texts provide a rich classification of agricultural produce, especially grain, which were central to diet and economy in ancient India. 17 types of dhanya grain are prominently mentioned. These grain include brihi, rice, yav, barley, masur, lentil, godhum, wheat, modg, green gram, masa, black gram, til, sesame, kodrava, kodo millet, sali, paddy rice, kulath, horse gram and sana, sanai or sun hemp. So, these type of grain indicating the variety of the production which is carried by the ancient people as well as the environmental condition of that particular period, because these type of cultivation is favorable according to the climate at that time period as well as their technique, their technology regarding the surplus production, regarding crop rotation, regarding multi-cropping is also reflected with this kind of description. In addition to these, the names of arhar, pigeon pea, kala chana, black chickpea, alsi, flax seeds, kusumba, safflower, tusa and sarso mustard are also mentioned. Other crops like rice, sugarcane, Unchu was also major crop. In Mandsaur ancient Dashrupa there is a mention of an Ichugrah sugarcane house. The extraction of sugarcane juice was done using traditional presses referred to as Mahajant or Koluka. Flood and famine. During the reign of Chandragupta Maurya, a severe famine struck Patna due to a lack of rainfall. Similarly, a 12-year-long famine occurred in Dakshinapat region. In times of famine, people were often forced to sell their children and accept servitude to order to survive. An extinct description of a flood in Patna is found in the text. The city of Shravasti was submerged due to flooding in the Rapti river. Similarly, floods were common in the Sindhu region as well. Now, the explanation regarding the garden. Jain scriptures mention Ujjana garden and Aram pleasure garden. Flowering trees were planted in the garden and people preferred plays and dramas in them. These gardens were typically located near the city. The Aram, including groves of trees and creepers, were wealthy individuals engaged in recreational activities with young women. Jain text reference various fruit trees in gardens such as mango, jamun, fanas, jackfruit, dalima, pomegranate, kadli, phal, banana, date palm and coconut. The Aram pleasure garden were irrigated using canal water to ensure the plant thrived. Protected garden known as Nijjana were private royal garden. These gardens featured a variety of plants including trees such as Ashok, Padma, Nag and Champak, flower like Kanera, Kubejka, white rose, Euthika, jasmine, Mallika, jasmine, Champak and Kunda were also cultivated in these gardens, contributing to their beauty and fragrance. A garden with a household mango trees was referred to as Sahasram Van. Wild fruits were collected and transported in carts to be sold in town. The ripened raw fruit for different methods were employed, showcasing the various techniques used in ancient time for fruit preservation and ripening. The ripened unripe fruit, particularly mangoes, for traditional methods were used. Now, Indham Paryam, to ripen mangoes, they were placed inside dry grass or husk, allowing heat to be applied indirectly. This gentle warmth facilitating the ripen process naturally. Dhum Paryam, in this method, cow dung cake were burned in a pit and raw fruit were arranged around it. Smoke from the fire reached the fruit through small hole in the pit, aiding in the ripening process through controlled exposure to heat and fumes. Next is Gandha Paryam. In this technique, raw fruits or vegetables such as cucumber and gourd were placed alongside already ripened fruit. The aroma emitted by the ripe fruit naturally accelerated the ripening of the other through ethylene exposure. Vriksha Paryam, it is a natural process where fruit were allowed to ripen naturally on the tree itself without any intervention. So, the process of agriculture and as well as the process of the particular the raw fruits, how to ripen it, how to manage it, how to protect it and the different kinds to the ripen the particular mango is mentioned, is just showing their technical enhancement, their scientific technical thinking at that contemporary time period. Now, the explanation regarding the forest. In ancient Indian texts, several synonyms are used for forest such as Van, Kanan, Atvi, Aranya. Near the ancient city Rajgrih, there was a vast forest Maha Atvi stretching 18 yojan where bandits eventually took refuge. These forests were rich in various kinds of trees, grasses, thorn and fruit bearing plants. The wood from these trees was used for fuel for making vehicles, charcoals was produced from wood and these charcoals were used to bake bricks. Those who collected wood, leaves and grass were called Kattahara, Prathaharaka and Trinaharaka. Hunting mrigya also took place in the forest. Hunting of deer was also mentioned. Use of land. Although land was generally used for agriculture, barren land was used for burying or cremating the dead. Some areas of land were covered with forest or jungle. Some contained mines, akara, while others served as pastures. River banks were generally not used for farming and animal husbandry. Cow, bulls, buffaloes and sheep were considered livestock. Vraj herd could contain up to 10,000 cow. Wealthy individuals kept cow and buffaloes and their settlements were separate from others. Cowherds used to carry flags and walk in front while the cows followed them. To manage them efficiently, the Grihapati householder would assign cows to different cowherds based on their color, black, white, red or spotted. Women were responsible for milking the animals. Milk from camels, sheep and goat was also used. So, on the basis of these explanation where the agricultural practices was carefully managed by the ancient people is also mentioned, but as well as the whole surrounding structure of the ecosystem like the maintenance of the natural vegetation as well as they are very useful for the economic growth of a state. So, they were protected by the state, the proper taxation system and the proper management of the food, the proper supply of the food to the market was also explained in the different Jain and Buddhist text. And animal husbandry is always very important in order to understand the proper structure of agriculture, horticulture or arbory system. So, on the basis of these whole structure we can say during the Buddhist and Jain period, agriculture remained the foundation of the economy supported by improved irrigation and land management, while Jain principle of non-violence influenced some to avoid direct farming. Agriculture continued as a respected and essential livelihood. Religious value, state policies and practical needs together shaped a balanced and ethically conscious agrarian system. So, both of the religion Jainism or Buddhism also said about the protection of the proper environment through the protection of animal, through the protection of the natural vegetation as well. So, if you want to enhance your knowledge in this particular topic, you can consult these references which is mentioned on the slide right now, and thank you very much for your patient listening. Namaskar.